What's up, guys? Ben here, bringing you another video today. Week 1 of the CDL is officially over, and my chat has requested that I do a way too early, do a tier list, revisit what I did in November. So let's dive in. Let's rank all the 12 CDL teams based on how they played this week. All right, so you guys have seen this before if you've watched my channel. If not, I don't really like doing the lettering tier listing. I think it's kind of whack. So I kind of do it this way. The top row is Sunday regulars. These are going to be your top 3, top 4 teams. Again, Sunday regulars, because they're going to be on Championship Sunday. You're going to see them pretty much every last day of every event. Potential contenders, these are going to be more of your top 6, top 8 teams that don't qualify for champs. They might occasionally win an event or so, be on those Sundays, but I don't see them as sort of the upper echelon of teams, but they're definitely going to be thereabouts almost every event. Work to do, or sort of your bubble champs teams need probably maybe a roster move or two, or maybe need to work on specific things. But I don't really see them kind of being in the inside of top 8. And the missing pieces are going to be your bottom feeders in the league, teams that probably need a roster change or two before they are really competitive at a high level in the league. So let's dive in. I shuffled these around because I don't like doing it in the same order every single time because it's whack. So let's start with London. So London got off to a good start this week. They beat Subliners and they beat LAG and played particularly good in both series. Looked like the best S&D team last week, and I don't know how that happened. Yeah, I mean, I think people were pretty surprised by this one, although they didn't play the opposition that, say, Atlanta FaZe did. I think for London, I want to see a little bit more before I slap them in sort of potential contenders. They're really sitting on the border right now, so I'm going to put them in work to do. We might slide them up later in this video, but I think they moved off of being sort of the bottom to being in the middle here, especially if they can get off to a hot start this season. We saw what happened with London last year, right? They had to go to a good start, got a lot of points. The way this format sometimes plays out, if you really kind of struggle for a major one, that's okay, as long as you can bank points somewhere. So I see London as kind of being maybe in the middle over here. All right, next up, we have the Vegas Legion. Obviously, much talked about team, I think, in the run-up to last week's sort of opening day, opening weekend. You know, they were playing particularly good online. You really like the Clay and Donnie combo. Let's take a look at their stats in the last couple of days. Unfortunately, they had 2 losses, one against the LA Thieves, and they got kind of 3-1 in that series. Surprisingly taking actually the S&D in that one. And then against Florida, it did go the distance, but unfortunately they could not clutch up last map round 11. And honestly, I think Vegas probably should have won that series. They just basically tossed it away. So I think 0-2 is kind of harsh for them. I don't think they played particularly bad. I don't think, though, with Vegas, I don't see their ceiling being super high because of sort of the talent around Clay and Donnie. It's no disrespect to, again, TJ and Byron, aka Prolu. I just don't think they stack up with other more aggressive duos in the league. So this is a weird one for me. I want to put Vegas in work to do, but I also think they kind of need a later roster change if they're going to be a real contender. I'm going to put them in missing pieces for now, but we might shuffle this later in this video. All right, next up, we have the boys from OpTic Texas. They had a adventure of a couple of days. Forfeits, playing particularly good. Not doing interviews, all sorts of drama going on over there. I mean, they probably could be 2-0 again if they didn't do whatever happened in this Røkkr series. We might be sitting here being like, oh, but I really like where OpTic is right now coming in. They looked really good, I think, and particularly clean in hardpoint. I would say, you know, that Mercado hardpoint was maybe not the best map. If you're, say, Rambo Ray, I'm sure you'd want your team to rotate a little bit more, but they got the dub, so we'll give them that. I would say their S&D looked not too bad this past week in control as well. So I like where OpTic is netting. And I don't think it's really going to change my thoughts that they're just going to be sort of in this top 3 category. They should have the tools to be top 2, top 3 every event. We'll do the rest of this video. I think you'll see kind of how it lays out. But I would be mind blown really. And I think it would be a detriment to the team. They somehow managed to slide out of this category. But you know, they have some more harder matches coming up this weekend. So I don't know if 3-1 is necessarily on the cards for them. But with the way the group stage is, I'm not worried if any of these top 6 teams go kind of 2-2, as long as they're competitive in those series, because they may have harder schedules than, say, London or Ravens. Then I feel good about it. So Sunday regulars it is for OpTic Texas. Next up, we have the Florida Mutineers, who actually have the best jersey in the CDL. I don't know how that happened. Let's take a look at their numbers. Big win over Vegas for them, and then they just kind of looked outclassed against OpTic. So not a bad 1-1 if you're Florida. My personal thing with Florida, I am a super long-term view on this team. I'm not expecting to do much off the rip, and you can see it because I think they really are not a particularly good hardpoint team on paper. Where they're going to have to win series is the 2-3-5 or stealing one of those hardpoints. They're going to have to really win both S&Ds in most of the series if they want to win. Maybe they might sneak a 2, respawn dub at some point this season, but I don't see that happening too likely. So for me, when it comes to Florida, I still think that in order for this team to be, even making champs, they're probably going to need a player or two. They're going to probably be leading this missing pieces category. They're developing. Whether or not they do roster change, we'll see, but this team is months away from being very good. I think you guys just got to be patient and trust the process there. All right, next up, we have the Seattle Surge coming hot off of last season, playing particularly good at the end of the season. Didn't really have a hot weekend last weekend. Let's take a look. Surprising loss, I would say, to LAG, and then they lost in 4 maps to Breach. Surprise 0-2 start for them. I don't think they played horrible in the respawns in those series. They looked very competitive in those game modes. They played a lot of Hotel the last week or so. So I think the respawn's there. Where I'm very concerned about this team is how uncompetitive they looked in Search and Destroy. I think last year, S&D was sometimes a problem for this team. It is again, like, they've got to address the S&D before they're really, rebounding in the upper tier. And it's kind of crazy for Seattle because, like, they can kind of get away with not being a good S&D team. Like, if you look at how champs played out, they won a couple of searches and mostly just doing crazy stuff in respawn. Like, it's doable past the top 3, top 4, but I think a lot of teams got better this year, so I don't know if they're able to pull off that same strat. So I think considering that and the fact that I really only want to put like 8 teams in contenders, I'm gonna probably surprisingly put Seattle in the work to do category. I'm a little I wasn't thinking about that before we were doing this video, but as I've kind of talked myself into it, they may ping pong back and forth this category. Maybe if I do another tier list before Major 1, but right now I'm very concerned about the S&D. I need to see a little bit more from them this weekend in that game mode before I bump them back up. But they're straddling the line right now, and they might be sort of a struggle sort of qualifier for champs with the way things are going right now. All right, next up we have Zinni and the boys from Boston. They had a big weekend. Let's take a look. Big victories against Atlanta FaZe, and Seattle Surge has them sitting 2-0. Looks very disciplined in S&D game plan wise. Looked really disciplined in hardpoint, and which is a surprise. I mean, this is a team that has players like Nero and Vivid that love to push, that love to move, and they just look like a well-oiled machine last weekend against, I don't think, particularly easy opponents by any stretch. So a really good showing from Boston overall. It's kind of hard for me where I want to place them at the moment. I think I'm going to put them in potential contenders. I got people in my chat being like, are they like the best team in the CDL? I'm not sold on that yet. One weekend don't make it a fantastic team like that. They have the potential. Look, we've been saying all offseason this team has the potential to be a top team in the game. They did the first part of that last weekend. Let's see how they go into Major 1. I want to also see them do it on land before I kick them up to the Sunday regulars tier. But right now they look like they're going to be competitive this season, that top 6, top 8 category. Beyond what we saw last season where they would get those placings, but just get smoked by a top team. They beat FaZe this weekend. I got to tip them on that. So, all right, next up we have the New York Subliners. Probably my most disappointing team last weekend if I had to rank them. So let's take a peep. They lost to London in a very uncompetitive L, I would say, out of them other than the first map. And then they lost in 4 to Toronto Ultra, who just kind of really outclassed them on that LCLO control and looked like the more disciplined team on Hotel. I just think New York kind of almost ran out of energy at the end of that series. Control looked like a huge problem game mode actually for New York in both series, so I'm looking to see an improvement there. They didn't play good in either control map that we saw from them in those 2 matches. S&D was my problem with New York right now is sort of the narrow-ish win conditions and the lack of real teamwork that we saw on the map. I think talking on the flank with Haggy and Pat and Tom, like we just felt like watching New York play on the map, it just didn't seem like they were caught up to other teams. They seemed like a lot of individuals trying to do plays. Like they need to get better at the overall teamwork stuff because this game punishes you if you make the wrong play. I hate to do this to New York, but I don't really know at the moment in my current mindset if this personnel group is going to really do it with how kind of good some of these teams are. So I might put them in missing pieces. If they ping pong up maybe after next weekend, but right now, like I'm just not really feeling the New York team. I'm also going to move Vegas now back up in work to do because they might be able to get a chance without making a roster change. But this is sort of this is your 11th and 12th right now. I think this is 10, 9. You know what I mean? So let's go from there. All right. Next up, we got Los Angeles Thieves. A decent showing for them this weekend. Let's take a look. They beat Vegas. Did a good job in that series, winning 2 respawns and a control. Lost the S&D, but all good. It's Fortress S&D. I'd say that map is pretty fugazi. Had a great, fantastic banger series against Atlanta FaZe. We're probably going to see those teams clash a lot this season. I mean, just a good start for Thieves. They have a tough schedule. Them going 4-0 is not easy. This is all really practice for the major ones. So I like what I saw from them. You know, maybe you wouldn't like to be 1-2 in S&D, but that'll be even out. I like where this team's at. I don't think, just keep working on your little things and you'll be good for the event. So I'm not putting Thieves any lower than Sunday regulars. Teams is well sought in this meta and just in general to go and be a top 3 or top 4 team at every event and probably win a few. So still like where they're at. Another team that I think we're going to place in Sunday regulars, we got Atlanta FaZe. Let's take a look. Tough loss to Breach, and then I didn't really pick them against Thieves, so I thought they were looking at an 0-2 hole after this weekend, and they grind that series out. Again, just like Thieves, you look at these stats, and there's some improvement areas for them. 0-2 on Hydro. Hardpoint probably not particularly good. They need to work on that. But outside of that, they look particularly good. Especially in hardpoint, like they look like, again, they're always like this in the beginning of the season. They always like that they're a solid hardpoint team off the rip. With FaZe, for me, it's the S&D. Can they be an elite S&D squad? They're going to have a lot of win conditions if they can be elite in S&D. But if they're sort of mid-tier getting searched, kind of up and down, top 3, top 4, maybe top 5 S&D team, and they're not like at that 60% automatic clip we saw in Cold War, then it's going to be really competitive with the rest of the squad. They're once again in this tier. I think if we kind of do a sort, we'll probably do it like that. So next up, we have the Los Angeles Guerrillas. Let's take a look at how they played the last couple of days. 1-1 for them. They had a nice victory over the Seattle Surge. Grinded out a really good last map, Hotel. There was a massive delay between maps 4 and maps 5 on that. And then they went ahead and lost to London in a pretty good banger series where London took 2 of the S&Ds and LAG took the hard points. It's like a weird week for me to read. I just don't know how to read LAG day to day. And I think that really describes their team. Like, they looked really uncompetitive in the hard points against Surge and then looked really good against London. So I don't know how to read that. And the S&D, he looked really good against Surge and they looked really poor against London. So I don't know how to read that either. That really encapsulates this team. Like, bro, they're like the biggest anomaly of a squad. And I think I have to put them in work to do because they're just not a consistent team, bro. Like, it's really hard on a given day to know if LAG is going to win or if they're going to lose. Or are they going to be competitive and get 3-0? Like, they are looking like this year's Florida. And when I say that, like, they can beat anyone and they can lose to anyone. So I don't think, in my opinion, that has changed through 2 days. In fact, maybe it's gotten stronger based on taking a look at that. All right, next up, we have the 2 teams I'm probably going to go ahead and place in potential contenders, but let's talk through it. First up, we got the Toronto Ultra. Let's take a peep. They went ahead and had 2 mixy series. They kind of got gentlemen's 3-1 against the Minnesota Røkkr in the first match where they won the first map and then lost the next 3. And then against New York, they ended up kind of doing the opposite of that, losing the first map and then winning the next 3. So a bit of a mirror if you take a look at how these game results look on the top above my face cam. Another team that I think really, my opinion, hasn't changed. Like, they have a high ceiling. They look good across all game modes, but will they apply that ceiling consistently in the beginning of the season, or is it going to take a second for them to be more round in sort of championship form? We will see. I think, again, potential contenders. Don't know if they're going to beat these teams consistently. When I say these teams, Thieves, FaZe, and OpTic, but they should be top 6, top 8, as long as things go well for them when they pull up to Raleigh. And finally, last team, we've got the Minnesota Røkkr. Let's take a look at how they did this weekend. They went 2-0. Obviously, the series against OpTic, we'll never know if that's a true dub or not. And then against Toronto, we just talked about that series. They rebounded after losing the first map. I think for me, the things to like about Røkkr, the S&D looks really good and disciplined, and that's what we would expect of this veteran squad. And they grind out 2 control wins, although I guess maybe the first one, now thinking about it, maybe wasn't a win for them. So let's table that for a second. The hard point did look okay at this couple of matches they played. So I'm curious to see this weekend how they do. If they don't improve a hard point, that could be a potential weakness spot for them in Major 1. So let's see how they do in the rest of their matches coming up. My opinion has not changed here. Potential contenders, top 6, top 8, so be it. So I think let's make a couple of tweaks here. I really don't know who to call up as sort of my 7th team here. And I think my loyal viewers, I might need to kick this to y'all. I really don't know. So in the comments, let me know what you think. Seattle, London, Vegas, and LAG. I almost said Paris there. I'm probably going to do that about 59 other times at some point this year. So be it. Yeah, I think this is the list, at least right now. We'll probably do one more tier list next week before the event based on how the groups get drawn, because I'll kind of influence whether or not they can get out as part of that. So yeah, this is where my list is. Not a lot of changes, I think, from my last one. Just more of shuffling, I think, between these 3 tiers. Yeah, guys, let me know in the comments what you think about sort of what team I think you think is 7th. I'm curious to see what your guys' thoughts are on that. As always, like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content, and we'll see you guys on more videos throughout this week as we get ready for the second week of the CDL kicking off on Friday. Peace.